What's really good, people? It is that time of the month again where we talk about the previous month's manga pickups. Now look, I know I missed out on January. I was a little bit busy in January. I had a lot going on, but I'm back around for February and I decided to go ahead and bring them all together and make one supersized video for you this month. So we've got tons and tons of manga to go through, so many different volumes for us to talk about, some really great stuff, some not so great stuff, and definitely some smut for you perverts because I know you love that stuff. Anyway, since we've got a lot to cover, I'm not going to ramble on too much, but I do want to say if you enjoyed this or any of my other content, go ahead and click all those buttons, man. Click that like, subscribe, and turn on those post notifications if you want to know when I drop the next piece of fire content for y'all. Anyway, without further ado, let's get into the pickups. Okay, and our first book is going to be Now That We Draw, which is a romantic comedy. You know my bag. You know I love a good rom-com. This one follows a couple of high schoolers or middle schoolers. I can't remember what they are. But essentially what's going on in here is our main character is a mangaka who happens to be quite terrible at writing manga. And so he, takes his work to an editor pretty much crushes his whole kind of dreams or whatever. But this girl happened to have stumbled upon his manga and read it. And though she also thought it was pretty terrible herself, she saw a little bit of potential in his work. And so this becomes about them faking a relationship so that he can write better manga. And of course, hijinks are going to ensue. So this one, as you can see from flipping through the book already, is definitely a little bit ecchi, but still should be a very fun read. I am familiar with this story through manga recaps, so I was very, very excited to see that it was coming out. Now this is volume 1, so it's just getting started. Once again, as you can see, this one's a little bit ecchi, not quite smut, so if that's not your bag, don't read it, but I always like stuff about manga, and I love a little bit of romance, and you know what? I like boobies. So Now That We Draw, volume 1. Next up is going to be one of my favorites, I Want to Do Bad Things With You, volume 4, which I have already read so far. This was another great volume of I Want to Do Bad Things With You. This time we're kind of playing off the trope of sick and kind of shut in and studying and all of that good stuff rolled into one. But I absolutely love these characters. They're all kind of getting pushed a little bit closer together. And of course, we're seeing more of the love story blossom in this book. So if you are not reading I Want to Do Bad Things With You, I would highly recommend it because it is a very, 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 very fun high school rom-com manga jump off for all you little romance manga dweebs out there like me. So I Want to Do Bad Things With You, volume 4. Great read. Our next book is going to be volume 6 of 365 Days Until the Wedding. I think this one is wrapping up relatively soon. I could be wrong, but I know this pretty much kind of ends where the anime ends for this particular series, if I'm not mistaken. And it has like a little bit of extra in it as well, but I think there's another 2 or 3 volumes of this coming out. But it's just a great fun read about 2 kind of awkward people finally getting together, and now they're making the marriage real and they're realizing their feelings for each other. So we haven't quite, I don't think, I read most of this one and I don't think we get to the wedding at the end of this one, but it still was like a fun read, just, fun, heartwarming read, watching them finally kind of putting the pieces together and actually deciding to be in the relationship together. Now, funny thing about this is I picked up volume 5. This is where I left off at. I picked up volume 5 of this and I didn't get around to reading it. I was pretty current up until that point and I never ended up reading it, and I ended up getting this one and I just started immediately reading it. I mean, to the point where I, almost finished the whole thing, but I immediately read it. So I stopped because I need to go back and finish reading or start reading volume 5. But volume 6 was good. I mean, it gave me goosebumps. They're so adorable together. But yeah, if you have not read 365 Days to the Wedding, you could probably watch the anime, but there's just so much context that's left out of the anime. I would definitely recommend possibly skipping the anime and reading the manga if you are a manga reader. I enjoyed this. Next up is Rurouni Ruri Dragon, I can't say it the way you're supposed to say it, so I'm going to say Ruri Dragon, which is another high school kind of rom-com, this time about a girl who, I don't know what birthday it is, maybe her first day of high school, I can't remember what it is, but she basically ends up getting horns and finds out that she's half dragon. Her dad was a dragon. And I've heard nothing but good things about this particular series. I haven't read it. It's been in my TBR for a while now. Really been wanting to kind of dig in and get into it. But yeah, here it's like a really fun coming of age story. I think this is one that like you either really like or you really don't, but based on what I kind of know about it casually, I think this is like right up my alley. I think it's gonna have a lot of the same feel of like, I want to do bad things with you, and he said, okay, flunking her high school glow up, and et cetera, et cetera. So I'm really looking forward to this, and the artwork is so cool. It looks really good. And I mean, I think just the fact that like she's half dragon, and I feel like they play that pretty straight in the book, like not for comedy or anything like that. It's like she is unique, but also just kind of living her life. Sounds really interesting to me, and I'm, you know, excited to see what type of hijinks and shenanigans that happen as a result of like this one particular thing about her life. So yeah, looking really cool, looking really fun. Maybe I'm seeing things about this book that is not true because I haven't read it yet, but you know, we'll find out very soon. Maybe we'll talk about this in one of our manga reads. I've been thinking about doing like all number ones for one coming up here in the near future, and I think this will probably be one of the ones that we read. But yeah, Ruri Dragon. Next up, You and I Are Polar Opposites Volume 4. Now, in a previous or the first manga reading like log or whatever that I did, I talked a little bit about the series and how I got turned around on it pretty quickly by the end of Volume 1 and into Volume 2, and I've been enjoying it thus far. Haven't read Volume 3 yet, but Volume 4 is out now. So this looks to be another great story about these two kind of getting closer, but also their friends kind of getting closer. I mean, this is a couple that I really have my eye on, and I want to see kind of what happens with them because they're so like adorable. He's such a dumbass. Like she's so shy. So I'm excited to see kind of how that dynamic works out and how they get together. And I love the fact that they're not afraid to highlight like a different relationship happening in the background. So, you know, I really like books that, you know, focus on friend groups, number one, but I like when there's like more than one romance going on and we kind of get a peek into multiple romances and romance happening from different perspectives other than our just like main characters, or like all of the romance revolving around those two. So I'm super excited to see kind of how that plays out. But yeah, You and I Are Polar Opposites Volume 4. Very glad that I stuck with the series. I'm not gonna lie. I'm excited to see where this thing goes. Next up, Firefly Wedding, which is another book that I'm actually familiar with from manga recaps. And honestly, I probably haven't read Volume 1 because I've already watched a manga recap on it, so I know what pretty much happens. But I think there is like a whole lot of value in reading the actual words instead of having like shitty AI read it out to you. But the long and short of this particular story is about this young girl right here who has some type of heart condition, life-threatening condition, and she is like a noblewoman, and she basically wants to give back to her family by getting married to a good man. Very simple premise, doesn't make a whole ton of sense, but like whatever, we gonna roll with it. But essentially, Shorty gets kidnapped by a bunch of like bandits, and she's put in a situation where either she's gonna be like sold off, I think, to like another group or something like that, or she's got to get out of the situation. She pulls up on this guy. She's like, hey dude, I can get you money, like whatever you need if you get me out of this situation. And he's like, I don't really want that. But basically, if you freaking tell me you love me or whatever, maybe she just tells him he loves her. I can't remember the situation, but basically she's like, look, I gotta pretend like I like this dude in order to get out of this situation. And that's what she does. And dude says, okay, well, if you're gonna marry me, like, cool, like I'll get you out of the situation. And he is a fucking psycho killer. Okay, dude is crazy. But anyway, like that is the least of her worries, because man, a whole lot of shit happens throughout the course of this one volume. And I definitely think I probably meant to put this in the later section in this, but this book is like a little funny, a lot serious, and a lot of like crazy stuff happens in this book. So would definitely recommend it if you like romance, but you like your romance with a little bit of edge. You're a Yakuza fiance, like that kind of vibe. If you're into that, I think you will probably fuck with this book. Really cool, kind of from what I know about it, and I'm kind of excited to really dig in and actually read the words on the page instead of listening to it from some shitty AI. So Firefly Wedding Volume 1, really been trying to keep down like the number of Volume 1s that I've been picking up lately. But there's some books that like I said, I watched recap on that, or some other things that I knew were coming out that I felt like were down my alley that I went ahead and picked up the number 1s. But our next book is going to be Kirakia-san Wants to Lead Him Around by the Nose. I think this is going to be the make or break book for me, and it's really going to be the deciding factor on whether or not I drop this series. I enjoyed Volume 1 enough. Okay, like it was fine. It's a teasing manga, much like Please Go Home, It's a Kutsu or something like that. It's ecchi. I mean, the first thing you see when you open it up is like cleavage galore. It's high school. It's all of that kind of stuff. It's whatever. Okay, it's not. Volume 1 was not the greatest book. It was cute enough to make me want to keep going, but I think pretty soon I'm going to read Volume 2 and Volume 3, and I think that's going to really be the deciding factor on whether or not I keep up with this book, because I have not really had much motivation to continue reading this, and I think that's like a little bit of a problem. Like I've carried Volume 2 with me to work, or had it in my like TBR now pile for a while, and I just skip over it and read something else every single time. And so I just can't decide if I feel enough affection for this book and these characters to keep it up, but it could surprise me in Volume 2, and that's why we have Volume 3 on deck. So I'm going to be completely honest with you. This was dangerously close to getting dropped. We're going to see though. I mean, I think if it picks up and it gets interesting enough for me to continue reading it other than the movies, then we may continue reading this book. But if not, Volume 3 will be my last, and I'll be looking to unload this series somewhere. So let you know what my thoughts are. Maybe we will do one of our reading vlogs specifically on this book and the first 3 volumes and see kind of what our verdict is at the end of it. But Kirakia-san Wants to Lead Him Around by the Nose, Volume 3. Now our next book is another one. Man, I want to say manga recaps have really been well represented for the last couple of months. Glasses with a Chance of Delinquent, one I watched as a manga recap quite a while ago actually, and I was like, man, I think I'm gonna buy this when it comes out. But basically our main character, this guy right here, was a delinquent. He was a Yankee back in the day, but now he's in high school and he's trying to be like a good student and be locked in. But you know what? Sometimes the devil be coming out of him. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes you just gotta pop out a show. You feel me? And that's what he really be on. But he's still like pretty chill guy. He does it in like more comedic ways. He's not like really aggressively just beating people up. Anyway, he meets this girl who's like, super kind of attracted to him and his personality because he thinks he's like really nice and sweet, until she finds out he's a former Yankee. He's like, wait a minute, what the heck? But she's still intrigued by him. And so, it's obviously gonna be like a little budding romance. This is something kind of new and refreshing for me. I know this is probably not the only or the first story doing it, but it's the first one that I'm jumping in on Volume 1 and kind of latching on to. So I'm excited to read it. I don't think it's anything reinventing the wheel or anything. It's, gonna be something like right middle of the road. It's just, do you like this kind of stuff or not? That's kind of what this story is. But from what I know about it, it's extremely cute and kind of wholesome, and the characters are kind of cool and fun to like watch, and the art style is kind of cool. So yeah, I'm super excited to actually read this, because like I said, the vibes are a little bit different when you have like an AI voice summarizing the story and a few pictures popping up versus you actually reading the entire story yourself. So Glasses with a Chance of Delinquent, really cute story. If you're into this, I would definitely recommend picking this one up. Next up is Tokyo Alien Bros, which is one that we talked about in one of our reading vlogs. So if you want to get more kind of expanded thoughts on that, make sure you go ahead and click that card right above and check it out yourself. Now, this one was a really fun read. It comes from the mangaka of Hirayasumi, so you can see a very similar art style with this particular one, though I would probably argue this one's a little more edgy. Edgy in comparison to Hirayasumi, which doesn't take much to be, but it basically follows 2 brothers who happen to be aliens living on Earth, trying to learn more about the customs, get accustomed to what's going on. There is like obviously some characterization and some character growth, especially with this guy right here. I think there's a lot of character growth that's going to happen with him. And the best thing about this is completed 3 volumes. So you buy 3 volumes and you're done, dog. You don't have to do anything else after that. You good to go. You got the entire complete story. So I think this could be like a great great way to dip your toe into the mangaka's work and kind of figure out what they're all about before you really dive into something like Hirayasumi, which I think it's still ongoing, but it's definitely running for a little bit longer. I think the Japanese one has about 10 volumes, and the translated one is at volume 4, I think. The English translated Hirayasumi is. So this is a great way to kind of tap into their work. I think there's a lot of similar themes in this one, even if it's its own kind of piece of work. But yeah, some really cool twists and turns in this book as you're reading it. Definitely enjoyed it, would highly recommend it. I'm anticipating it getting even better in volume 2. So Tokyo Alien Bros, if you want my expanded thoughts, make sure you go ahead and watch that last video. Okay, our next book is Ogami-san Can't Keep It In, volume 7, returning to the channel for the last time because this is the final volume of the series. I am actually very, very sad to see these two go. I've already started reading it and I really don't want to complete it because I know I'm not going to get to spend any more time with these characters, and I have done nothing but love Ogami and her boyfriend, whose name I can't remember, but I've loved these two characters since I've been reading this series. This is one of the early books that I bought in like my romance manga journey, and I have been very, very happy with it. I mean, it's a very middle of the road kind of coming of age story where obviously they're getting together and they're learning about their feelings, but at the end game, you know they go do it. They gotta do it, and I think that's kind of cool. That's where we kind of lead into. I've read ahead in this a little bit, and I don't know how satisfying the ending is, but I have to read like I guess some of the words that are in between or some of the situations that are in between. But I'm really excited to go ahead and finish off this series and kind of close this chapter in Ogami-san Can't Keep It In. But yeah, final volume. Sad to see these guys go, but excited to have it in my collection. Our next book is another final volume, The Concierge at Hokokyo Department Store, Volume 2, which is based on a movie by the same name. Very simple, very good looking manga, basically about a world where regular looking humans and anthropomorphic animals kind of live in harmony. And it's basically following this one girl who works at this department store and kind of all the quirks and things that are happening in that. Now, oddly enough, I put off reading Volume 1, and this is like a very light read. It's not even a ton of pages, but I put off reading Volume 1 for like quite some time because I was waiting for Volume 2 to come out and kind of forgot that I had it until I saw Volume 2. So I am actually looking forward to just kind of sitting down on a Saturday and breezing through these 2 volumes and just kind of figuring out what happens in this thing. But like, if not for nothing, I mean, I think the artwork is just absolutely adorable. Like I said in my last pickup that included one of these, I think that this reminds me so much of like a children's book. I mean, it is so retro and so quirky, and it reminds me of Are You Being Served? I mean, it's like new, but it just brings up so much nostalgia feelings for me. And I think both of the covers of these books are absolutely gorgeous as well. So really excited to read this story. So The Concierge at Hokokyo Department Store. Okay, next up we have The Flagrant Flower That Blooms with Dignity. I feel like it sounds like I'm saying the flagrant, but the fragrant flower that blooms with dignity. Look at that color. Everybody in their casual clothes and everybody's looking fly as shit. I'm kind of here for this. What an incredible series. The anime is coming out very soon, I think for the spring or summer season. So I think we're going to see this uptick like very soon, but just a great story about not just romance, but like a friend group coming together and defying expectations, and you can't judge a book by its cover and all of those great things. And man, the characters are just so well drawn. The artwork is gorgeous in this book. I mean, it is absolutely beautiful. The characters are just so endearing, and I didn't realize the fits were so hard because the first couple of volumes they're in like their school uniforms most of the time, but now I'm looking at this one where they're in their casual clothes and I'm like, okay, go off, you know what I'm saying, go off. But yeah, this has been a pretty good read. I think I'm on volume 3 in this one now, so I need to step it up. Come on, bro, these fits are crazy. Anyway, I think I'm on volume 3 right now, so I need to kind of step it up and pick up the pace and kind of get through this. There's just been some other books that we're going to talk about later on that have been capturing my attention way harder. But yeah, you know, Fragrant Flower, if you're not reading this is just such a cute story with such cute characters, and you just root for everybody in this damn book. Please pick this up. Really great book. Fragrant Flower Blooms with Dignity, Volume 5. What more can I say? And speaking of Hirayasumi, we have Hirayasumi Volume 4, man. I recently read, I believe, volume 2 for a reading vlog. I think these are all kind of continuations of stuff that I talked about in my reading vlog. But I recently read volume 2, and once again, Harry Sumi just fires on all cylinders. I'm not in any rush to get through this because I just really enjoy having one waiting on me to read because it's such a great story, and I think it has really great replay value. Like, you're gonna want to reread this over and over again. The art style's so cute, the characters are so cute and endearing. They're all just so relatable. Like, what they're going through is so relatable. I love this book. This might be one of my favorite manga like ever. I'm just gonna go ahead and throw that out there, and we only 4 volumes in English at least, and it's one I refuse to read ahead to because I just enjoy it so much, and I feel like it doesn't have to go anywhere. Like, you can just keep telling me these stories until the end of time, and I'm just gonna keep reading them. They're so good. But yeah, volume 4 is out now. I think it came out this month, earlier in February. So yeah, here's Sumi, man. If you're not reading this, you gotta ask yourself why. Like, why are you not reading this? Because this is damn good. Okay, next up, it's going to be Colette Decides to Die, volume 2. Now, this is one that I know people really love, but I have really struggled to get through volume 1, and I can't figure out why, because I am quite interested in what I've read before, but I just felt like the timing wasn't right every time I tried to read it. Either way, I did go ahead and pick up this omnibus volume 2, which is gonna have, I think, volumes 3 and 4 in it. Basically, it's gonna follow Colette, who basically decides to jump down a well in her life after being overworked. She ends up in, I guess, the underworld with Hades, and she ends up becoming like Hades' apothecary or whatever, which is what she did as her profession. And obviously, we're gonna get like a love story out of it. But yeah, it was kind of cool, kind of quirky. I enjoyed what I got out of it. I liked the art style. I kind of like the shoujo art style, I'm not gonna lie. But I just could not latch on to volume 1. It's another one I'm gonna have to probably curl up on the couch and read it on a Sunday and just kind of make myself get to the juicy bits that I really enjoy. Or maybe it would have been a little easier for me to read in singles, which gasp as much as I love like the omnibus format. I think maybe I just needed like bite-sized kind of, I don't know, can't think of the word that I want to use, but I just needed it in like shorter bursts or something like that to kind of get to what I really need to get to be interested in it. But I'm not giving up on the series. I have volume 2, the omnibus, in hand. It will probably be read soon. But yeah, I do at the very least enjoy the art style, and I kind of enjoy the premise. So excited to see what else I can kind of mine out of this book. But yeah, Colette Decides to Die, Omnibus Volume 2. Next up is one that I am actually relatively surprised that I enjoyed Volume 1 or Volumes 1, 2, and 3 as much as I did, but Red River. I really enjoyed this book. Really, this is the first 3 volumes of it, and I was kind of excited to read Volumes 3, 4, and 5. Or 4, 5, and 6. I just kind of haven't really circled back around to it. I will eventually, the same way I did with the first Omnibus. But yeah, this one follows it kind of has like an Inuyasha feel. At least the setup for everything. Girl kind of gets sucked into a well, so to speak, not literally, but let's say a metaphorical way. Evil, like, sorceress queen is like after her blood to, you know, basically take over the kingdom type beat. She ends up running into like the prince who imposes the queen, and they are definitely heading to a love arc. And I will say the main character is dumb as hell. Like, she does so much dumb shit in the first 3 volumes of this. Like, I just kept, and like every time I would read it, I was like, you fucking dummy. Like, the reason why this is happening is because like you just keep making terrible decisions, and like not even relatable like decisions, but like watching the train wreck of the decisions this girl was making was just must see TV, man. I could not turn away from this shit. I really enjoyed it. She does get like a little bit better over Todd though, for sure. Over those 3 volumes, like her choices get a little bit better, and she decides to embrace the isekai and kind of lean into it, as you can see. So I'm kind of excited to see like what type of growth she sees in the subsequent volumes of this book. This is not gonna be one for everybody. I think this is definitely gonna be one for you old school like shoujo lovers. Like, if you just like that style of storytelling, if you like a little bit of fantasy, especially like Middle Eastern or like Egyptian type fantasy, you will probably really enjoy this book. Otherwise, if you can't get over over how like dumb the choices that like the main character makes in this book. If you can't get over that, if you're just like one of those people that's just like, come on, logically speaking, girl, why are you doing this? You probably are not gonna enjoy this. But I don't know, I could enjoy like a dumbass protagonist, and hopefully at the very least she kind of learns from some of her mistakes. And for it to be like quite the dated book, I think the artwork is pretty solid in this one. So definitely looking forward to reading volumes 4, 5, and 6 of Red River. Okay, next up is our first kind of big grip of books, which is kind of Akane Banashi 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. I love Akane Banashi. I love this story so much. I think that I am probably reading right now volume 4, and maybe I might be at volume 5 now. I think volume 5 is the next one I need to read. And this has been, I mean, I can't turn away. This shit is so good. I talk about this in one of my manga reading logs, the first 3 volumes of this, and I hope that I can sell you on this book from that, because it is definitely worth reading. I wish it was getting an anime, but you know, essentially kind of a little brief synopsis. Akane, who is on every cover, basically her dad got expelled from this Japanese storytelling school or whatever. He was like pretty good at it, but politics things, blah 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 blah, he got expelled from it. She decides she wants to take up the mantle and become the illest ever to show how raw her dad was. And it's just her going through, getting better and better in this, and meeting people along the way and doing competitions and learning life skills and all kinds of great stuff. Great book. I would highly recommend reading Akane Banashi. If you have not, if you've been on the fence about it, like I bought all 10 volumes of it. I'm glad I own it physically, because geez, this is just such a fun read, and it is so compelling and it is hard to put down. Akane Banashi is fire. Pick this up. But yeah, so we've got the first 10 volumes of Akane Banashi on Deckington here in the last 2 months. So next we have our next chunk of books, and there's going to be more chunks of books, but this is going to be Nina the Starry Bride volumes 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. And let me tell you, when I think about a story that is compelling and just juicy shoujo drama, this is the first thing that comes to mind. Now, I think this and Red River have a lot of similarities. I feel like if anything, this took a lot of inspiration from Red River and just managed to elevate like the material so much. This is another one I talked about at the same time I talked about Akane Banashi, and I hope I can sell you on it with that, because god damn, this shit is so good. So good. Like, if you're not reading this, you should, because the artwork is great, the writing is fantastic, the characters are very easy to latch onto, and you just want to see how this shit plays out so bad. Now, right now, I am currently at volume 4. I just started reading volume 4. I feel like I just got it like recently. I've been waiting a long time to get this one, and it's just so hard to turn away from this book. It's so hard to stop reading it. Like, I've just been so busy trying to make content for you guys that I kind of had to put it down. I had to, kind of put it down for a little while. I haven't really been reading anything, but man, this is a fantastic book, a fantastic series. I think it's worth your shelf space if you can get it or read it digitally or whatever you can do. I don't really want to tell you much about this. I want you to watch the review that I did about it, but if you know, you know. If you know, you know. And you know how good this story is and how it has you on the edge of your seat trying to figure out what the heck is gonna happen next. So if you ain't reading Nina the Starry Bride, and if you look at anything in this video and you feel like you want to pick it up, or you can't decide what to pick this shit right here up, my dude. Pick this up, because it's fuego. It's worth your time. Okay, now it's time to move into your favorite section, the smut section of this. And we're going to start off with something that I have not read yet, that I've been very interested in for a long time. And that is Les Geese Volume 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. So that is the entire series right here. Now, this follows our main character who's not featured on the cover because it's all about the pretty girls in this particular one, who has a contract with a demon essentially to get this girl who is his childhood friend and the one he wanted to be with. And he ends up making a contract with a bunch of other girls, basically having like a harem or whatever. And all they do is nasty stuff. Okay, this one's kind of filthy. This, I think, is the only one that I have that is like high schoolers, because I usually try to stay away from high schoolers, but I ended up picking one up off the shelf and like it was unwrapped. So like I read through it a little bit and I was like, oh, I think I want to read this. So yeah, it gets kind of freaky up in here. If you like the freaky smutty stuff, this is for you. If you can bypass the high school thing. Okay, this is kind of freaky smutty. I don't know what this says about me. Yeah, you know me. I never try to pretend to be a better man than I am. And so, yeah, looking forward to unwrapping these and reading these and seeing where this takes me. Interesting premise. My main thing with these smut books is I always at least hope that they are like well enough written that like I can get something interesting out of it other than the smutty part of it. And this one at least has like an interesting enough premise so that it is not just people having sex. So interested to read this and see where it goes. But yeah, Les Geese volumes 1 through 7, the full series. Next up is channel favorite Booty Royale. These are the last two omnibus. I have them backwards. The last two omnibus from Booty Royale. So this is volumes 13, 14 and 15, 16. Well, now let me start off by saying Booty Royale is not good. Okay, this story is not good. It is not well written. It is dumb. It has no idea where it's going or what it's talking about. You're mostly flipping through this for these smutty pictures and what's happening. I think I've talked about this before, but basically this girl, the main girl, you know, moves to Japan to be an idol, but also happens to be like a crazy good martial artist. She is not a very good singer at all. She ends up getting duped into doing corn and doesn't really quite enjoy it, but does make some friends along the way, and then somehow it kind of turns into like a fighting tournament. It's just, what is this book about? I don't know. Tell me down in the comments what this book is about. I mean, at this point I had to complete the series because I had quite a few volumes, and I'm not gonna lie, if you like smut, especially like Yuri smut, you'll probably enjoy at least the pictures. I did, at least. But yeah, last two volumes of Booty Royale, these are definitely getting opened. And I'm definitely gonna look at the pictures. I'm not gonna pretend like I'm a better man than I actually am. Pretty excited to flip through the pictures. Not excited to read the story. But to talk about one that I did really enjoy was Isekai Affair. 10 years after defeating the Demon King, the hero cheats on his wife with a warrior woman who lost her husband. Now, am I gonna advocate for cheating on your partner? Absolutely not. Absolutely not, okay? You should just leave if you're gonna cheat on your partner. However, if you are gonna cheat on your partner, make sure that you have a bunch of cheat skills so that you can pull it off impeccably. And also make sure you have a large boobed warrior woman who can take all your cheat skills, okay? Because that's what's happening in this book. Oh my God, this book is so crazy. But it's low-key like pretty well, okay. When I say well written, I'm talking about a scale, okay? I'm talking from a scale. It is smut. The whole point of this book is for them to do nasty things to each other. But I will say that, you know, it is well enough written that you are, at least I was engaged with the story and not just the pictures, unlike, let's say, a Booty Royale, right? I did actually want to read this, and I am looking forward to the other two volumes of this coming out so that I can read more about it and probably read it multiple times, because this was a very, very fun read. Basically, this is an isekai hero, so he got isekai to another world or whatever, comes in, helps defeat the Demon King with her and, you know, his party or whatever. She marries somebody else in the party, but they always had a thing for each other. Her husband dies, his marriage sucks, you know, they don't really do anything, she don't have nobody to do anything. They get together to reminisce on the old days, and they end up doing things. And they continue doing things, and they continue to find creative ways to do things. And that's essentially what this is about. Really fun read. very much so enjoyed this book. If you like this kind of smut, I would definitely recommend picking this one up. Just don't cheat on your partner, okay? To do it. All right, hope you enjoyed that smut section. I know that I did, but let's get back into our regular manga. So first up, a comfort read for me, Frieren Volume 12. I've actually been getting caught up with Frieren lately. I just really enjoy this book. This is like literally one of my favorites. I actually find myself enjoying reading the manga a lot more than I'll enjoy reading the show, which is saying a lot because I loved the anime. I love the anime. It's what made me want to read the manga. Volume 12 is the current translated volume of Frieren, so even flipping through this right now is kind of giving myself a ton of spoilers and figuring out like kind of what happened or what's going on right now. I'm trying not to read too much into it because I think right now I'm on like volume 6 or 7, so about halfway through the translated ones at least. But I do kind of have a little bit of context for this, which is Frieren somehow ended up going back to the past and basically like reliving her journey with Himmel. I don't know how we kind of got there to that point, but it seems like a very interesting premise. But yeah, Frieren is a great read. Honestly, if you haven't seen the anime, I would definitely recommend going ahead and reading the manga. If you have seen the anime, I would definitely recommend going ahead and reading the manga. It is just something very quiet and serene about this series that makes me love reading it so much, and you have so much more content in the manga that you don't have in the anime because, you know, it ended at a certain point. So here we go, Frieren Volume 12. Next up, another anime that I really enjoyed in Dandadan Volume 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and the recently released Volume 11. So pretty far along in this series. Have not read one volume of this quite yet. I just haven't really felt the need to catch up on it. I just like having them for when I want to read them. I don't feel like any like sense of urgency right now, but definitely really love the anime of this and thought it would be honestly worth kind of diving in and collecting the series, if not for any other reason than I wanted them to continue making more episodes of the anime, but also I kind of want to know what happens next. And I know we are getting the next season. Is it this summer? I think it's coming out. So the turnarounds have been pretty quick on this, much like Oshinoko. But yeah, covers are beautiful. The spines are beautiful. The artwork is actually pretty dang good. This is actually the current volume, so spoiler alert, I guess, for anyone who hadn't read it. But the artwork is really dope, honestly. So definitely plan on digging in and just kind of kicking it and reading this. I don't think I'm going to do a reading log on it. I'm just going to read it for fun. But yeah, Dandadan, man, like look at this artwork. Like the artwork is just insanely good. As good as the show was, this looks incredible, honestly. This is my first time flipping through one of the books. I have 11 volumes of this and it's my first time flipping through it. But yeah, now I have the first 11 volumes of Dandadan. So awesome. Next up, a volume 1 that I really enjoyed and I'm looking forward to diving into this, volume 2, which is Kagurabachi. Really dope story. And I know this has like a lot of heat behind it right now, but yeah, a really dope story about swords, magic, tragedy, family, revenge. This one's dope, man. I don't read too much action. I'm definitely a romance ass dude, but when I do read action, it is fucking peak. And that's how I would describe Kagurabachi. I will actually probably be reading this very soon because I gotta know what happens next. I'm not even gonna wait to build up any more volumes. I gotta know what's gonna happen next in this book. But yeah, Kagurabachi Volume 2. I know a lot of you are probably reading this or it's on your reading list to pick up soon, but not for nothing, the art's kind of dope. Characters are kind of dope, like really cool design, lots of really cool fighting. I mean, come on. Like, pick it up. Next up is Thunder 3 Volume 1 and 2. Now, this is a book that I was not terribly sure about picking up, but I picked this up on a recommendation from a few manga channels that I kind of respect their opinion, and so I decided to give it a shot. It also comes from the same mangaka that brought us not only Gantz but also Gigant, which Gigant is, the smutty version of Gantz, I guess. No, it has nothing to do with Gantz at all. But Gigant does this very interesting thing that I think is like hit or miss. Either you like it or you don't, but it does this thing where it does these like real world, like digitized backgrounds on regular art. And I think it was like almost like the prototype to this particular book, because this book does the exact same thing, but I think it just executes it in a much better way. And it executes it with a really like cool premise, with it basically being like these three guys getting, sucked into what would equate to like, I guess, the real world to go find their sister, who is this girl here. And it is like apparently a very like wacky story, but like very compelling and interesting. And I mean, look at that artwork. That's insane. Now, where I think where Gigant, it looked a little cheesy at times, here it's executed very, very, very well. Like those like kind of digitized realistic backgrounds with the kind of anime aesthetic. And I think even how they like do characters that are supposed to be like real world characters is a very interesting and refreshing take. And the first volume at least is pretty chunky. So we'll probably be digging into this one like very soon to kind of figure out what's going on with this, because if it's coming from the mangaka who did Gantz, you can only imagine like how weird this shit gets. So yeah, kind of excited to pick this up. I don't know if I could recommend it for you quite yet. And this might actually be a good kind of like first volume read for recommendations. So let me know down in the comments if you might be interested in that from me. But yeah, Thunder 3 volumes 1 and 2. Next up is another absolute banger that I read last year, which is Sora and the House of Monsters, this time volume 4. This is a great series that I feel like people don't talk about enough. I don't know why there's not more conversation around this series, because this series is excellent. I can't tell you how badly I wanted volume 4. Like, I had to wait a few weeks after release to get it because my local Barnes & Noble just did not get it in stock, and I had like pre-ordered it for pickup, and it took about 3 or 4 weeks after release for me to finally get it, and it did not disappoint at all. This is an incredible series that I just wish there was more conversation around this series, because it's so good. The artwork is so crisp and clean, and the characters are just so unique, and premise is so refreshing. I have a ton of passion for the series, and I'm down to reread the first 4 volumes and do like a reading, log on it, because I just want to see more people in this community talking about this incredible series. It's way too underrated, and like the volumes are coming out like relatively slow for this one. And it may be because of popularity or something like that, but I just think it deserves a much wider readership. This story pretty much follows like these dwarves and this like human girl who was like pretty much trained her whole life to like fight monsters, and they're in this world where like humans and monsters are kind of separate, and they had like a major war the demons lost, or the monsters and demons lost, and so they kind of got like pushed back to their territory, and like the humans are like not great to them or whatever, but the war kind of ended, so they're not really messing with them like too much. And basically like these dwarves have kind of a philosophy that they learned from another human, like basically monsters deserve homes too, and so they go around building like functional homes for the monsters that they crossed it. And human girl is going from like absolutely hating monsters to learning more about them and learning to like respect and appreciate them, and it is just so cool. This one functions as like a bit of a flashback episode where you're kind of finding out how the main dwarf, who is this little guy, where's he at? Who's this little guy, whatever, how he kind of got his start. And it's like a really cool, touching, heartwarming story. And it's 4 volumes in. They are like $16 a volume, but if you could catch them on sale, I would definitely recommend this series. It is worth your shelf. I haven't said that about too many series that we talked about right now. Like majority of the series are specifically to my own personal proclivities, but this one's so good. I think you should pick it up. Sora and the House of Monsters Volume 4. It was a great read from a great series. Next up, we have Versus Volume 4. This one coming from one who did One Punch Man. Volume 1 was so interesting. It was I did not expect it to go where it went. I'm not gonna sit here and lie to you. I thought this was gonna be like a traditional fantasy that was kind of funny, and it was not that at all. It started off that way, but it was not that at all. It was something far more complex than that. Really, really interesting. I mean, one, definitely found a way to subvert my expectations, and I'm expecting a lot of the same from volume 2. Now, much like volume 1, it will probably be a while before I get around to reading this, but I will say, like, the artwork is great. It definitely makes, feels a lot like One Punch Man, but it feels quite a bit more refined than One Punch Man was. And I think the characters are so interesting, and like the situation you're in, I don't even really want to tell you what it is because I feel like it would give away like a lot of what would make you want to read this. Like, it's kind of giving away the twist. But yeah, I want to see where this goes. I'm committed to this for at least probably like 4 or 5 volumes, because I feel like it's like that kind of story where you're gonna have to read about 5 volumes of this to really decide whether or not you want to keep reading it. But I'm very interested in seeing like how this situation is gonna play out for them and how they're gonna get through like this situation. But I mean, the artwork is super duper cool. The books are relatively chunky. I will say volume 1 was a lot more chunky than volume 2 is. It's funny, but it is also like very, very interesting, very compelling. Would recommend this one if you like a little bit of, I don't want to just call it fantasy. If you like your action genres thrown in a blender mixed together and you want to see how it comes out, that's probably going to be Versus for you. So yeah, pretty good read. Versus volume 2. Alrighty, we're right here in the home stretch, and our last few manga are going to be a little bit more serious, a little more action oriented, except for this one, which is Nakamura, the Uninvited Garu. One of my absolute favorite reads. I really enjoy this for the silliness of it. Gives me Mr. Kutsu vibes, gives me like My Dress Up Darling vibes, just gives me like all of these different vibes from all these different books that I like to read. A little bit ecchi, a little horny, a little wholesome. Nakamura is just such a cute Garu, and I mean, you tell me there's a Garu involved, you know I'm there, except for Kirakira-san. This is the better version of Kirakira-san to me. I mean, obviously different characters, different kind of situations, but I enjoyed reading this so much more than I did Kirakira-san. Volume 1 was great, and I've already read quite a bit of volume 2, and volume 2 has been great as well. Just takes a lot of that like teasing manga and that move in like kind of stuff and just puts it in a blender and makes it just so cute and wholesome with little bit of booby action, a little bit of panty action, the etchy stuff that you love. Nakamura is also like so goofy and kind of dumb, but like so cute and cool at the same time. So I just really enjoy reading this series. I don't want to spoil myself too much because I haven't read all of these parts that we're flipping through right now. But if you enjoy that kind of stuff, I think that you will really enjoy Nakamura-san, the Uninvited Garu. I think this is going to be a staple in my collection. I'm always really excited for the next volume to come out. And they did come out like relatively slow, though. I was a little surprised about this one coming out this month in February. I thought it was going to be like March or April. So was happy to get this in hand. Next up is Magical Buffs. The support caster is stronger than he realized, which is another series that I found through manga recaps, and I know far ahead what happens, but volume 1 was such a fun read. This is like, it's not an isekai, but it has like an isekai-esque title, and it's just one of those ones that like you read because you just kind of enjoy this type of stuff, and I think it's a little bit better than average. I think there's some really cool characters in here. I think Lemmy is like kind of cool, like kind of a decent character, even if he's like, he plays that kind of weird, deadpan, like I don't really think I'm strong, or like, whatever, and he's actually like super raw, and everybody around him thinks he's raw. But I think they execute it like relatively well in this book. It has some really like great art, some really great action in it too. I enjoyed this book like a lot. I was actually very happy that it got a physical version, because I didn't think this would ever come out, and I could actually see this probably getting an anime too. I don't know how popular it is, but I definitely think if the anime is executed like well enough, more people will read this, because it's not like this is like that banned from Heroes Party genre, but I turned out to be like the most important person in the party kind of thing, and I think it just does it really well with some like fun characters and some like fun situations, while also kind of building these characters up in the right ways. So Magical Buffs was a great one, and I'm excited to read volume 2. It's very different kind of reading the words versus like having someone do a story synopsis. So yeah, super geeked about this one. Great series. Next up is a series that I have not yet read, but once again, manga recaps have pretty much told me a lot of what I need to know about this series. Gacha Yakuta, volume 5. Picked it up. I think now is probably a good time for me to sit down and actually read this story. If you don't know what it's about, I've talked about it in another like manga pickup when I picked up the first like 3 or 4 volumes. But yeah, I mean, I think the artwork is like really cool. I think the premise is really cool for this particular book. I'm pretty sure quite a few of you are at least casually familiar with this story, like knew it was coming out, because less than like a Dandadan or, you know, Kagurabachi or whatever, it's still kind of been the talk of the like manga community as something that, you know, an action series has got some good solid legs to it. And this is, if I'm not mistaken, getting an anime adaptation like relatively soon. And I think that's going to take the series to higher heights. But I mean, look at how great that like artwork is. So super excited to read, like finally sit down and read this. This is going to be another like either 1 hour a day. Let's go ahead and get through it. And it's not like that dense, like word wise, so it shouldn't be that hard to get through. But, you know, 1 hour a day in the evening or whatever, kind of flipping through and getting through the actual volumes of this. But yeah, really, really cool, interesting premise, cool, interesting story. Gacha Yakuta 5 will be on my reading list soon. Next up, we have another book that I thoroughly enjoy volume 1, and I have actually read volume 2. And I mean, look at how incredible this artwork is, even on this cover. Like, this cover is crazy good, and that's Eden of Witches volume 2. Now, suffice to say how surprised I am that this got such a quick turnaround, because I feel like I bought volume 1 maybe in like November, and you know, volume 2 came out at the end of January or early February. So turnaround was like pretty fast for such a niche series. I don't think really has like a lot of legs quite yet. I did make a video about kind of like what this is about and why you should read it, and I kind of maintain that. This volume 2 was equally as excellent. Volume 2 focuses a lot on survival and like world building, and she meets a few new characters, which I think is like really awesome. And I don't know, it's just interesting to see like where this is gonna go, because I think like the first one was really designed to kind of draw you in and kind of give you a synopsis of like what's going on through the main character's eyes. This one dives a little bit deeper into what's going on around them, like what's happening, gives you a little bit more insight into the powers and what they do. You meet a kid who is like insanely powerful and has no control over her powers, which I think is really cool. You also see like the wolf kind of softening up to Pilly a little bit in this book. Yeah, I just think this was really cool. I still think Pilly is like kind of dumb, right? She's still written to be kind of dumb. I'm not even gonna say dumb. I think she's just written to be like very inexperienced. And I mean, it doesn't come overnight. We're only 2 volumes in, but you know, she's still making choices from time to time where I'm like, why are you making this choice though? But it's fine. I think it's, you know, it works in the context of who she is and who she's trying to be. And I think there's a bigger narrative coming with this. But yeah, Eden of Witches volume 2 is great. I'm gonna keep going with this. Highly recommend this series. Next up, another one of my favorites, Last Quarter volume 2, which is the final volume of this 2-volume kind of omnibus-esque series from the immortal Ai Yazawa. Usually I don't say names, but I am gonna say her name because she is the GOAT. And I loved volume 1 of this. I loved volume 1 of this so much. I haven't gotten around to reading volume 2 yet, which is kind of a shame because I've been meaning to get to it. It's just other stuff sometimes just grabs my attention and be having me in a chokehold, and then I gotta make content and I just never get around to, you know, some other stuff that I want to read. But I would like to read this relatively soon before I kind of forget what's going on in volume 1 and I gotta read that like 300 pages again. No, not that I would be opposed to it, because it was like a great 300 pages. I enjoyed the read, but I kind of want to figure out how this thing ends. I'm gonna slap it here because, like I said, this is the last volume. I do not want to spoil myself, but a great kind of romance mystery book with a lot of different characters that you get attached to. I'm very excited to read this. I will say the covers of these probably could have been like a little bit better. Like the first one I didn't mind so much. This one is a little bit dark, but you know, other than that, I think the contents of the book is really what matters the most anyway. But I just don't think it's gonna pop off the page or pop off the shelf to people or make them want to pick it up. And I don't know if people are gonna put two and two together and be like, hey, this is the same person that made Nana. But yeah, should be a good read. Very excited to read it. Hopefully Aya Yazawa sticks the landing in this book because they set up some really great stuff in volume 1, the last quarter of volume 2. Okay, next up we have Dogs and Punching Bags from Kiori Ozaki, which is one of my favorite manga because I have quite a few of their works, some old stuff, some new stuff, and I have been waiting for months for this book to come out. Now, I have not read it quite yet. I don't know why I'm waiting to read it. I have some other Ozaki books that I need to read, but this one definitely features adults, which I think is like really dope. But this one is just kind of like about someone who ends up going back to like a rural area that they're from after some time, and she kind of gets entangled with this like guy or whatever who has some things going on, stories of some old memories and some feelings, and you know, we'll see how it plays out. But yeah, I'm super excited to read this because I just really love Ozakai's writing, and I think that like they very specifically do a pretty good job of writing those like short slice of life stories where you just kind of get a glimpse into the window of like people's lives. And yeah, like sometimes it's not always like the most satisfying ending, or maybe like some things get kind of glossed over or happen like a little bit fast. And it's mostly because these are relatively short stories, but I always like really enjoy the journey, and I always really enjoy the characters, and I'm looking forward to like kind of living with these characters for a little while and figuring out where they take me. Like I said, I've been waiting months for this book to help kind of complete my Ozaki collection. So really cool to have this in hand. Definitely looking forward to reading this very, very soon. Now, it wouldn't be Hall if we did not have a little Oshinoko action in there. And this is Oshinoko Volume 9. Now, to be honest with you, I haven't read a volume of Oshinoko since maybe like Volume 5. So I definitely need to do a little bit of catching up because now we're kind of getting to season 3 stuff here. A little more Bikamachi 2, just some other things happening in the story that don't completely revolve around like Aqua or whatever. And maybe this is the point where people start to get a little weary of Oshinoko. I don't know. Like I've said in a previous video, I probably enjoy watching Oshinoko more than I do reading it. And it's not to say that it's like bad as a manga or whatever, but I just think it's one of those things that like really benefits from the medium of animation to kind of get its point across, because we're telling stories about like entertainment industry, and I think sometimes seeing those things in motion really make a big difference. But yeah, I think beautiful cover. It actually feels a lot more sturdy than some of the other books I felt too, which is great because I feel like the cover quality on Oshinoko has honestly, quite frankly, been not very good. So this one feels a little bit more sturdy, like the corners aren't going to start peeling in a week. I am going to read it at some point in time, but for me, I collect Oshinoko because I'm just like a big fan of this series. I'm a big fan of like the characters, especially the girls. I love the girls in this series. And so it's just nice to add another one to it, whether I read it or not. Next up is another series in Shimazaki in the Land of Peace that once again, I don't hear anybody talking about, but is an absolutely incredible and like refreshing series. Now, I'm going to pitch this one to you again. I've obviously gotten to the point where I'm just, telling you that I picked it up and not giving you too much of what's going on when we're a few volumes deep. But this one, I think is worth me pitching it to you. So imagine a kid getting kidnapped or from a hijacked plane, getting kidnapped and put into a liberation organization or terrorist organization, depending on, what perspective you're looking at it from, right? But he gets put into it and becomes basically like a train killer, right? And then he finally gets away from it and goes back home to Japan, where he's already lost all of of his family. So he's just living with a group of people who kind of know what his background is. They have a similar background or whatever. And he's just trying to live a normal life. And he kind of uses the skills that he picked up over time to like help people out. But there's also like a lot of reflecting on like, you know, what he's been through and like what it all means, while also having these people that, you know, this organization that you ran away from looking for you to either bring you back or kill you. And that's kind of like what's going on in this book. And it is so compelling. It is so compelling. It's so cool just seeing all the different ways he applies these skills, from cooking a meal or making coffee to like helping out with a manga to escaping a situation where somebody's trying to kill him. Everything is applicable at all times. And he's like super savvy in a way that like feels very realistic. He doesn't feel like he's like super powered or OP or anything like that. He feels like that, you know, these are like a guy, like a normal dude just using skills that he learned from like a terrorist organization to get by. And I think that's what makes this exponentially cool. And it's just the impact and the effects that he has on people's lives. And of course, like the action you get from like these people actually trying to get him, or like things he does to like help people out around him. Just really dope series that another one that I just wish there was more conversation around, because this is a really good series. And I think a lot of people would really enjoy this series if they actually read it. And this is one that it would shock me. It would shock me if this got an anime. I would be super geeked, but I would be very surprised if this got like an anime adaptation, because the subject matter is dark. I mean, it's you know, it's slice of life and chill about 50% of the time, but like the subject matter is dark and like very politically like charged, and they don't paint the terrorists as just terrorists. Like they have their own way of kind of like classifying them that is interesting. It gives you like a different kind of perspective. And so I would definitely recommend reading this, because this just has a lot of it just has a lot of intrigue to it. So Shimazaki in the Land of Peace Volume 2, highly recommend. Next up, we have another series in A Boy's Abyss that I have still not managed to read yet. I am 8 volumes deep of this series and I haven't read it. I think we're just gonna get to the point where we're just gonna wait until the final few volumes come out, and then maybe we'll binge it, or we'll just read it over time. Like, it doesn't really matter, right? But yeah, I don't have a ton to say about this. I mean, we're 8 volumes in, so I'm not even gonna give you a synopsis, and I haven't read it, so I don't know what it's about. It wasn't wrapped in plastic, so this should probably be safe for us to read. But the main thing that I know about this is that it's dark, it's pretty jacked up. There's a lot of messed up stuff that happens to these characters and ways that they deal with things. And I'm really interested in kind of digging in and kind of seeing how this story plays out. Now, I've heard various things about how people feel about the characters and how things play out in this book, but I'm down to figure out how I feel about it personally, because I do feel like it's a very personal story. And so yeah, Boys Abyss Volume 8, I think this one's ending in 10 or 12 volumes or whatever, so we're not too far away from actually figuring out what's actually happening in this series. Now, last but most certainly not least, the first 2 volumes of The Tiger Won't Eat the Dragon Yet, something that I found through manga recaps. I've said that several times in this video, but this is also like a supersized video, so of course there were going to be quite a few volumes of books that I picked up from the manga recap. Now, this book definitely has some Shotokan elements for sure, because the dragon character definitely looks like a very young boy, while the tiger character definitely looks like a grown woman, and there is some allusion to some romance in this. But hear me out. This is a very, very interesting story. Very interesting, because these are like, they can kind of like transform between like these forms and their like humanoid forms, number one. Number two, they just kind of like run into each other, and the whole premise is like dragon blood like basically makes you strong or like whatever, and so different beasts are trying to catch the dragon so that they can eat him. And basically kind of how this plays out is the tiger is like trying to catch the dragon to eat him, and they end up becoming close. Like she's like, oh, you're so young, and dragon's like, nah, I ain't that young. And so they kind of become friends, or like, paternal. I don't know. Their relationship is definitely like a little bit awkward. Like it's a little charged too. But I just think it's like them just trying to survive together. Other animals trying to get them, and building relationships with other different people or different animals. It's so hard to explain, and I think it's like 1000% worth your read. But they basically have a pact that like the tiger is eventually gonna eat the dragon. I forget like what the context was, but like at a certain point the tiger is gonna eat the dragon to see if their blood like actually does anything, or like gives them whatever power. But they just get closer and closer over time. And yeah, it's a really kind of dope story. It's so compelling. That's all I can really say. Is it's interesting seeing how this plays out, because there's like these paternal instincts, but then there's like this attraction between the two. I just want to see what they do with it. I just want to see where they go with it. And the artwork is absolutely beautiful. This is not going to be for everybody. I'm not going to recommend this to everybody because it's not going to be for everybody. But I think the storytelling is genuinely kind of unique and interesting. And I'm excited to see where it goes. Honestly, I'm excited to see where it goes. But yeah, so this is The Tiger Won't Eat the Dragon Yet. Volumes 1 and 2 are out. I don't know when volume 3 is coming out, but I would definitely say give it a shot. Even if you like read it digitally, I think it might be fun to give it a shot and see what you think about it yourself. I'm probably going to keep reading it because I thought it was kind of dope. All right, and there we have it. Another great month of pickups. Now tell me down there in the comments which ones are your favorites. Now I know this is a really long video and only a very small percentage of you soldiers out there are gonna make it to the end. So let me know down in the comments by telling me which one was your favorite volume that I picked up, or where some volumes are that you're gonna be picking up from this month's haul. And let me know about any books you may have read from this month's haul. Now as for the roadmap, I know I have slowed down putting them out a little bit. It's just been so busy, but I'm trying to ramp back up and get things done a little bit faster. So I think we have another figure unboxing coming up soon. I'm about halfway done editing it, but I kind of don't like the quality of the footage, but maybe I'll go ahead and finish it and put it out and let you guys decide whether or not you like it. I don't know. We're gonna have a manga shopping video coming up soon here. We keep putting it off and keep putting it off. We're gonna get it done eventually because I know you guys love those. The anime review will be done very soon as well. So I say that like every month, every video I say I'm putting that thing out, and it's not out yet, but I'm working on it. I promise you, we only have so many hours in the day. But like I said in the beginning and in the middle, if you enjoy this content, go ahead and click those like and subscribe buttons. Let me know that you fox with your boy the long way, you feel me? And until next time, like I always say, let's continue to talk about the things that we like, the things that we don't, and everything in between. And until next time, peace.